Hello. All right. Session 2, day 2. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. Nick, thanks for being here.
For sure.
My name's Joe Hall. I'm the co-founder of Spaceback. Spaceback is a creative technology platform. Our goal is to help brands unlock social experiences authentically to distribute outside the walled gardens into display or CTV. So we might touch on that a little bit today, but rather than just jumping in and having you introduce yourself and your title, I think it's really important to Nick didn't necessarily want to do this, but talk about his background a little bit and led to where he is. That informs his perspective. So maybe you could talk about how you got started, and we could work your way up to where you are now.
Sure. Is this like a job interview?
Yeah.
How many of you woke up this morning and were like, I would love to see 2 talks from insurance guys?
Yeah.
I sure did. No, I'm a newer insurance guy too, and I'll tell you that story. But we'll start with kind of where you want to start. I also am an ex-agency guy. My first 10 years of my career, I was in agencies and evolved from a media buyer, TV and radio media buyer at OMD and Media Edge and the big guys, and learned I didn't want to be in a siloed big holding company and didn't even understand kind of what the creative was or what the goals were beyond my cost per point. Then started to do some cool stuff at OMD when we had ABC as a client and launched Lost as a TV show for the first time and started doing kooky stuff, right? So like the 5-second radio spot, cool stuff of like the black box crashing. So got me kind of interested to say, oh, I like this advertising world, but I want more context and I want more creativity. So I hopped over to more boutique agencies and did that for a number of years. I got to a Canadian company that had a San Francisco office, and I was like 20-something, very young, and my boss quit. And I said to the CEO, let me run this office and let me run these 3 clients. And he kind of laughed at me, and I was making like $45,000 a year. And I said, don't pay me anymore. Let me do it and I'll show you. And you know, it worked. We turned the business and grew it 25%, and I learned how to manage a satellite office, became managing director of the media practice for the Toronto office, the Cincinnati office, and San Francisco. And then I quit. I tend to do that. The reason I quit was I started doing a side consulting business where I had essentially a white label media offering. And I went to a couple creative agencies in San Francisco, boutiques. It was the rise of the boutiques. This was probably, 07, 08. And these guys really liked what I had to offer with my business partner. His name was Nick as well. So we went by Engaged Media with an N instead of an E and thought we were super cool. And I had deals set up with like 3 different creative firms, and I was going to make millions of dollars at age 27 or 26. And then all of a sudden they all said, we actually want you to be part of our offering. And so it was more of like an aqua hire type situation. The little consultancy I spun up in between, I had some friends at Google, and I helped them launch this thing called Checkout at the time. And it was, I was helping, it was before Google had YouTube and GDN. And so I was teaching Google how to use a ad server at the time, which was really, really weird, but interesting. So had that consultancy, and that's what spun it into this kind of potential to go work at these boutiques. One of them I joined and did that for about 6 years. What I love about that experience is, we were able to buy media, but we really got into comms planning. So I was the media guy that sat in the middle of the creative department, and the medium and the message, the old Marshall McLuhan quote, was really, really kind of how I practiced, right? And so we sold our services as a creative firm that had, comm strategy and media buying. And the partners of the agency loved us because they could charge a commission on the media, right? And so I did that for about 5-6 years, touched so many different pieces of business. And so one of my kind of special skills that I like to say is I'm not an auto guy. I'm not an insurance guy. I'm not an e-com guy. I'm a guy that actually takes things from all different verticals and kind of brings them into each vertical I'm working in or industry I'm working in. So long story short there, I got my MBA and said, I'm going client side. I'm ready for context, and I want to be a marketer. I'm done being an advertising agency guy. And then I went to another advertising agency. So I went to a company called Swirl, and they challenged me and said, can you build out the media department, and can you take on Fortune 1, Fortune 500 clients and do what you did before for 6 years with, startups and other different clients? And so I did that for about 2 years, and then took my first in-house marketing job at Provide Commerce. Anyone heard of Provide Commerce before? Then it was FTD. Anyone heard of proflowers.com? Anybody had a really horrible purchase experience with online flowers? It was an amazing job for me to learn and transition out of agencies, right? So I had a $140 million budget, I had a team of 34, and it was, hey, go spend $140 million and turn it into $600 million of top line in like 3 weeks out of the year when people buy flowers and send them. Holy crap. What a wonderful way to throw me in to say, did what I do for 10 years in agencies translate, and can I learn how to run this DR machine and also teach this DR machine how to do brand, right? So we also had Sherry's Berries, we had Personal Creations, Red Envelope at the time, if you remember that brand. So I got to do some brand stuff and taught them about creating demand before the demand period, and did some kind of local test market stuff, and it was super interesting. I got promoted to VP, and I quit again. And I went to Dollar Shave Club. I was the third marketer on the team at Dollar Shave Club. I'm the best job of my career, not because we sold for $1 billion, because I transformed from a media guy into a full stack marketer. So I went there first 9 months, had to scale the acquisition team, built out the team. We were a Facebook machine. That was our one trick pony, 80% of our ad spend, right? So my job was in how do you diversify? So we got like 19 channels live and hired a full team. Scaled that. First 9 months became VP of marketing. That's when I took over CRM, retention at the in-house creative agency. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm back at home, right? I know how this works. And at the time, the voice of the brand was like so me, right? It was so fun to just talk about peeing in the shower and fart jokes and shaving, right? And what I really liked about it was I went from a high growth media dude to understanding LTV, return on investment a little bit differently, cross-sell, upsell, how do you get people engaged beyond the initial product, and really started thinking about relationships. And when I quit Pro Flowers, I remember the CEO of FTD flew in and said, your wife doesn't want to live in Los Angeles, you don't want to go to a fly-by-night startup, my stock is stable. He was fired 6 months later. So it was a good decision. And when you say something like that to me, it's like, okay, I'm out. And it was a great decision. After Dollar Shave Club, I left about 6 months after the acquisition to become a CMO and marketing leader and come back to the Bay Area. So I floated around different startups, had one go bankrupt, and had to lay off a bunch of people. So it was a good learning experience on it's not all like Dollar Shave Club, right? It doesn't all work that way. And since then, I worked in VC. I was an entrepreneur in residence. I advised a bunch of companies and boards. And one of the companies I was advising while I was working for a boutique venture capital firm called Canvas Ventures was a company called Gabby, an insurtech platform that essentially was a home and auto insurance brokerage and agency. And I'll tell you more about that later. But I did that for about 3 years as startup CMO. And we sold our company in October to Experian. And now I'm learning how to work at a big company with a lot of different silos and how to get stuff done, just like Dave.
Awesome. And what's your role at Experian right now?
You got to be careful when you go from startups to big companies, because the more I talk, the more responsibility I get. And that's cool. Sort of, but I'm at the point in my career where I'm like, I don't really want to do the 14-hour days anymore. But so I started as, the two founders had a little bit more equity than I, so they're a little bit not around. So I fell into the GM of the business role, which I sort of was already playing when you are in perpetual fundraising and selling your company for a year. The founders were doing that, and I was running the business. So I was lucky enough to kind of inherit running the insurance vertical for Experian Consumer Services. I don't know how much of you know, but the credit company and the bureau in Experian is now trying to become a financial super app, kind of like think old Experian meets Credit Karma meets the future, right? And so one of the key strategic priorities for them was an acquisition within this space. They used kind of the lead gen click-out market with kind of the likes of Quinn Streets and Media Alpha throughout the pandemic and saw auto insurance become a $20 million business for them. And they said to themselves, we want to be a relationship business. We're just sending people out. How do we create relationships? And my model is recurring revenue, right? We're a broker, we're an agent. As long as we keep you with the insurance company that we help you save money with, we make a commission recurring. So it's an LTV type business. So as that happened, I became in charge of auto as well, right? So how do we think about refinance for our customers? How do we think about buy, sell, and doing strategic deals with folks like Kelley Blue Book, folks like the refi players in the world? So I've got an interesting big role trying to integrate a 200-person startup into a huge organization and also try to create new verticals within the space. It's really different. And I'm still doing some marketing too, but they have a big marketing team that I get to kind of be the advisor client for, versus actually having to do it. But it's also hard to let go of, like, I have to hit a $200 million revenue number. I have X marketing budget and I can influence it, but I'm not in charge of it anymore. So I'm learning.
That's awesome. That's the setup here before we dive into questions, and I think really important. Nick's obviously got a background as a founder, startups, larger companies, which I think a theme as well as you've left companies, change, right? And the world's changing, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit, how the world has changed. So first real question, diving right in, an easy one. How can marketers win today? What are some themes that you've seen that we can share today?
This one's always interesting and it changes. So I came up with, I wrote down a couple of themes. I think this one is obvious, but I'm going to say it. Assume your best channel is going to stop working tomorrow. Right? And that creative that is the winner that you can't beat in Facebook and Instagram or on TV, assume it will wear out. Be proactive. Try to be proactive, not just reactive. Another theme is similar. Safety nets on your distribution. I went through a really interesting story of super high growth, 600% at Gabby, to all of a sudden, oh shit, it's not working like it used to. People are not watching TV like they used to in the pandemic. So diversification is key. I used to get made fun of by the CEO of Dollar Shave for too many little channels that represented 3% of sales. And I used to say to him, but dude, if you add 3 plus 5 plus 3 plus 5, we got 20% of our sales, right? And we're deleveraged from the Facebook beast, right? And Facebook's amazing, but when you have 80% of your budget there and you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, you got to be careful, right? So another thing is, don't rely on ROAS. Understand your numbers, right? So a lot of startups I work with are like, well, the in-platform number on ROAS says X. And I'm like, well, have you put it all together to really look at what your dollars are and what you're seeing in return? Even the really ugly last click stuff that we hate to do, like, have you looked at that, right? 2 startups I advise and sit on board for, I had that discussion this week, right? And then when we put that data together, they're like, oh, wow, we didn't see it this way. And that's not necessarily the way, but it's balancing the views, right? Another thing that I learned the hard way is quality and LTV over pure growth. I don't think volume at all costs is a thing anymore. It was when I was coming up, right? Partnerships are the new. At least for me, when I was in insurance and Gabby and moving to Experian, it was a B2B2C deal that I'd flipped that turned into an acquisition. It's the old affiliate model, but this is different. I think if you can find the right partnership and go deep and create a moat and make it hard to evolve out of, it's just, think of it as another channel, right? And another way to diversify. And then 2 other quick things. Pure play D2C. 10 years ago, I was like, we are D2C, we don't need retail. I think that's changed. I think the D2C mindset is still imperative when we think about customers. But I think distribution has to move beyond pure play D2C and go back to some of the omnichannel way. It's really hard to talk about why these boots are different or better if they look just the same, but they're $100 more than this other brand doing digital. And don't get me wrong, I came up in '08, like, I'm a huge digital marketer, but you also have to just be thoughtful and understand the situation we're in. And then last one is talk to other marketers, talk to people, take those networking calls. I think we were talking about it earlier this morning. Be curious, establish a testing culture, and reward vulnerability and celebrate failure. It's going to take 7 to 10 things before one thing works. And if you celebrate that, your team will continue to innovate and something will click.
Things change. You hit on it. I think you also hit on the end. You hit that on that first. I think you also mentioned community, and this is the Brand Innovators plug that Mark talks about and everyone here. Community of people, not just learning, but connecting, talking. Things change, and you can learn the nuances of your business, again, versus other businesses. So definitely take advantage of that here and throughout your careers. Social media, you mentioned that not being relied on just Facebook. How has social media changed and evolved during your career? Man, that's such a loaded question. I just turned 40. I'm officially like the old guy, right? Everyone on my team's 25. And I used to be that guy going, oh, you're 40-year-old? And I know it's not that old, but my point is, when I was starting out, Facebook was the way.
for distribution. It was really starting to be a thing when I was at Pro Flowers, and like it was the thing at Dollar Shave Club that scaled us. That plus a little bit of virality within the platform, as well as YouTube virality. So, I mean, that was when Facebook was cool and we all used it often, if you're under 50. And that was when Instagram was all like, you know, food pics, right? It was a different environment, right? I was one of the first DR pilots in Snapchat. And I remember how nervous we were because everything was so highly produced, and we're like, this like fast and loose thing, like, and we just overthought everything about production quality. And you look at today in the creator environment and how it's evolved, and like TikTok, it's like we don't even think twice. We just shoot shit and put it out there, which I love the evolution of kind of the authenticity and kind of lowering the brand barrier. But I think, you know, one of my big successes was we did this giving campaign to the military in Afghanistan and gave a big pallet of razors. And a year later, somebody posted it on a military Facebook channel within Facebook, and it literally went nutty, like 20 million engagements, and drove like millions of dollars of revenue in that month, and just completely started to create pockets of tribe for Dollar Shave Club, right? We had already had dudes, young guys, sports guys. Now we had military on our side, right? Sadly, I don't think it's that easy anymore. And like Facebook has done a really nice job at kind of trying to monetize what we used to kind of hack to get virality and a little bit of extra reach. So it's harder. There's still communities there, don't get me wrong. But it's harder. I think you heard me talk about kind of the creator culture. I don't know, like 5-6 years ago, I thought that there was just not enough places or stickiness to all that stuff. And yeah, influencers are great. They're hard to manage. There's all these influencer platforms. It's going to be video. YouTube's tough to measure. It's evolving. Like, it's a thing now. Like, UGC is almost silly for me to say because, like, that is, right? It's like creator content. UGC is a stale word, in my opinion. It's funny. TikTok creative is all over Instagram. Who would have ever predicted that? But why not, right? It's easier, the bar's lower. It's interesting.
I think that we talked about this the other day, and you all probably are familiar with the stat of like how much Netflix, since it's in the news, spends billions of dollars creating content. Then you've got TikTok, and it's like all free content basically. And there's a wave there that's probably not going to go away. You touched on, I guess, polished creative, obviously this UGC and TikTok and Snapchat. Do you have a perspective on, especially from a brand perspective, but that how do you walk that line of like the production quality versus like this wave that's coming in from a content creation, distribution, partnership standpoint?
I think it depends, right? I think I fundamentally believe, and I have Nick's hot take, right? So it doesn't mean I'm right, but it's my hot take is I don't want you to tell me, brand X, why you're so great, right? Of course, you think you're great. And I'm in insurance just like Dave and Allstate, like we're all saying, switch and save, right? We'll save you money. So I think, it's kind of like the testimonial play meets UGC influencer creator type content. I want to hear from people that I can relate to, that look like me, that share interests, or that I follow and respect, talk about things that are interesting to me. So I think the world has changed in which you can build a brand bottoms up instead of tops down. That's not to say that brand media is a waste. I do brand media today. I have John Cena as my spokesperson for car insurance. Don't get me wrong, it plays a role. But I also measure it different and know the role of it, and then look at my DR mix different with that to play. So I think the big thing for us was like, don't overthink it, but also like protect yourself. Put guidelines out there. Don't go fast and loose and let everyone do everything, but also kind of like let it happen.
So the world's changing. You've got to experiment in it. You've got to play in it. You're not afraid to do that. Let's see.
You know what? One other quick comment I wanted to tell you on the UGC production quality stuff. An example of Dollar Shave Club, we used to do like box shots where like, you're opening the box, like Stitch Fix. All these people did this. It was a huge thing. And I had this big marketing team, and I ran a contest and said, everyone go home and make like your unique specific way for a box shot and use your iPhone, right? This was like 2011, so iPhones were a thing then. And then I spent like $50,000 on this pro photo shoot with all these different bathrooms and all these awesome, beautiful, high production quality photos. Not one of those scaled. Guess what scaled? My butcher block kitchen from IKEA with a box on it. We spent millions and millions of dollars on. So that was just an example of, high production quality over thoughtfulness versus like I just shot it at my kitchen,
Are you seeing organizationally the silos starting to break down between, let's say, social and traditional media at all? I know for a while those things didn't touch.
Yeah, I mean, finally, I think, right? I think streaming and OTT and video is starting to become something that we can compare against linear. Facebook was the new and social media because you could measure it and you could engage with people differently. So I think the unfair advantage with some of these walled gardens that Google and Facebook put up is starting to deteriorate a little bit. And so I think the playing field is there. I mean, like you and I were talking earlier, like life is social. The web is social. I'm a little bit scared about, is metaverse social? I think so. But, I think generally stuff doesn't work the way it used to. So there's an opportunity, and the playing field is leveled to think kind of omni-channel media approach.
Post-COVID world, iOS changes. At Spaceback, we started to see creative has to work harder because of some of those changes. What's your playbook in the post-COVID world? What's changed since you touched a little bit earlier at Dollar Shave Club? Where are we now versus then?
Yeah, lots of change, right? Like you wake up every morning, embrace the change, and take that kind of everything's going to stop working tomorrow mindset, conspiracy theorist mindset, right? I think the iOS thing was interesting for all of us. I think we knew it was coming, we prepared for it, and we still all got hit in the face by it, right? And so I'm not going to say a specific playbook beyond, for me, in the business I was in, it was about safety nets and launching new distribution channels and continuing the testing culture even when you had inefficiency and you had an uphill battle on your return on investment, right? So media stopped working 50%, right? It was more expensive and less people were engaging, right? So what did I do? I flipped up a B2B2C arm, essentially a biz dev department to go find financial apps and fintechs that wanted to distribute insurance. And instead of saying, hey, do a partnership with me, and sell insurance to your users, it was, hey, what if I gave you a product feature where your users could have insurance rate monitoring? And so, hey, Experian, just like your users, monitor their credit and boost their credit with you, what if they could monitor their insurance coverage and their prices? And what if, our tool could rerun their pricing every 6 months and guarantee that they have the best rate, or show them an alternative provider that they could buy with. So for me, it was, I turned into a B2B guy, and half my portfolio turned into chasing Chime and SoFi and Carvana and getting these deals done. And these deals represent, the size of 2 channels put together. And so that's an example, but I don't say that's what everyone has to do, of me pivoting. Like, my toolbox for 15 years has been like, I know these 12 channels, I know how attribution works, and I go to every company and I go, okay, first year, clean it up, know how to get it to scale and work. That toolbox is different. It's changing.
Let's shift gears a little bit, talk about TV. Some traditionally large brands in TV, you've had some experience in TV. How hard is it to break through to TV?
Yeah. I think it's been a theme for a couple of years that it's not hard at all. And I'm a bias. I was a TV guy early in my career, and the first thing I did at Dollar Shave was flip on TV. And so it was me and the Facebook guy fighting for dollars, right? And all that kind of stuff. I'd say it's super easy to break through to these days. The creative barrier that we used to be nervous about is gone. I'm flying to LA tomorrow to shoot 2 spots for a fintech bill negotiation startup that I'm on the board for $20,000. Right? Measurement has really come a long way. There's some of these really interesting non-holding company players or holding company players like Tatari or Prospect Point Media or Bliss Point Media, and that have these MMM baked in tools that aren't selling you MMM, but they have their own way to help you understand what the value of the media they're doing for you is. I run TV for these startups that I work with, and I'm bringing this to Experian, right? They have their big Simul Media, Camelot Media deals that we do, and then we have this DR layer. I treat it like Facebook. Cost per sign up X, conversion rate 3 to 5%. Your cost per sold is Y. Give me money from Facebook, it's not working, and let me put it here.
So challenger brands can enter in the TV space now, CTV. The barrier to entry is a little bit lower.
I think so. And before it was when you're entering, it's competitive, and there's not enough inventory, but COVID just completely accelerated the streaming space, right? I think I used to be the linear will never be replaced when streaming and OTT started being a thing. Now 50% of my buy at Gabby before we got bought was streaming and OTT, and it was more Fox, NBC, Hulu, and these places that were emulating my linear buys. Not so much some of the kind of OLV stuff, which still has a role, but like thinking about pure play TV. Big companies, small companies, I think there's a really interesting layer here below the brand layer where you can really get some performance, like a performance channel.
That was going to be my next question. You mentioned briefly measurement. Used to be awareness, performance. How do you think about measuring TV?
I mean, it's interesting, right? Experian bought Gabby. I had spent 3 years at nauseum on TV at Gabby, and some of you might have seen me saying, hey, I'm Nick. We created Gabby, right? And I have to build brand. No one knows that Experian does insurance, right? But I also need to flip X million dollars of revenue, and I only have Y ad budget allocated. So it's a combination for me, at least today at Experian, of I'm measuring brand search, I'm measuring a panel of brand awareness and attribute linking, but I'm also doing the MMM-DR measurement at the same time. So I think it depends, but I look at cost per sign-up, cost per sold. With TV, I look at awareness lifts and all the above, and I found a way to kind of separate the tactics to understand which one is doing what.
Awesome. I don't want to lead the witness on this one, but we saw it from a brand standpoint. Let's say Snapchat launched, and it was like it wasn't as polished, right? And then Instagram's a little more polished, and then we've got TikTok, and it's less polished. And we're talking about UGC. You're talking about the TV spot you're going to shoot for 20 grand. My prediction is that TV will start to go through the same metamorphosis that we've seen on social, is just you can work with less premium polish. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have a perspective? What do you think the future of kind of TV content and accessibility to more brands?
Yeah, I think there's a level of polish that consumers expect, but also some people make it ugly by design to attract a certain segment of an audience, right? Have you guys ever seen the general TV spots, right? Those are purposely made that way to attract a non-standard business segment of the market. So I've done a bunch of UGC. I did the COVID iPhone shoot when you couldn't get new creative, but you were tired, and you couldn't get crews because no one was working. It was okay and it worked, but I think in that medium still today, there's a level of polish expected from the consumer, but I think you can deliver the level of polish at a much more efficient way, to my earlier point. So it's not to say there isn't a role for both, but the stuff I'm shooting right now is the two founders saying why they created this thing, right? And why it's awesome and why you should use it. It's very, very basic. And that's more UGC than it is hiring somebody like Molly Shannon to do, a high-produced comedy ad, right?
Cool. Awesome. How are we doing on time? I want to make sure we... Okay. Run out of time. All right. A couple quick things. 2 more questions. Jumping over to from the investor kind of advisor role that you play, you probably approach businesses slightly differently than the role you're in on your day job. Maybe you see things slightly different. What's changed in the last 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I was a high growth startup guy. It's not about high growth at all costs anymore, right? So the fundamentals are important again. I watch CNBC at nauseum in the morning, and Jim Cramer says it, invest in companies that have revenue. Some of these multiples are crazy right now. So I think there's a great balancing going on in the venture capital world on what they're paying on rounds to invest. But I think the things they're looking at today is path to profitability, what's your plan, lifetime value and return on investments, and kind of sustainability and potential scale versus, just, hey, we've unlocked scale.
Last question. So we know the future is not going to look like the past exactly. From advice to marketers, how are you thinking about the next 6 to 12 months with what's potentially on the horizon? Who knows when that'll hit? How do you prepare and plan for that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because I think that's a tough one. I'm looking at what note I wrote to myself this morning on this question because it's a tough question, right? So I wrote, buckle up. I guess I could have remembered that. No, I wrote buckle up. I think this one is different. So another Nick hot take is I think people still have savings. in their savings accounts, right? There's something interesting going on. So if this is a recession, consumers still have money and they're still spending it. They might pull back from spending it, but there is money in their bank accounts. People are still traveling now. We're all chasing this artificial baseline. That's not news to you guys, but COVID created this artificial baseline. We did our annual plan for the year, and we want to grow 20% off of something that was unrealistic to grow off of. So I think all of us should find a way to still try to grow, but be realistic that you're working off an artificial comp. Your baseline is artificially high. Does that make sense? And then I think the other things is just spending is going to be more thoughtful from consumers and from advertisers, right? So segments will react different. I think more affluent segments probably won't be hit as hard, and you'll see spending probably not slow down the same, but they'll probably be thoughtful with spending. And I think some businesses are going to be harder than others. You guys are well aware of this. The mortgage business is in a tough spot compared to where it was a year ago. But could shift into HELOC because we all have equity in our homes, right? So if you're a financial services play like me, do you think about, well, if mortgage is not the thing to do, is HELOC something to do? So I think it depends. Be smart and get ahead of it is my advice to you. Think about what's going to come in 3 months' time, and it's probably going to get worse.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Nick. Really appreciate the conversation.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.